Partner, we began the show, of course, referring to and kind of diving into the pity argument when it comes to favoring some of those who favor Josh Allen over Lamar for this year's MVP award. The second is more with less. Care to explain?
The second argument is more with less. So just to recap, because we're about to dive into some words from Dan Orlovsky this morning on Get Up. So Joe Burrow had a great game over the weekend. He was 39-49, 437 yards, and 4 total touchdowns. Now, it did take him, the Bengals, to beat the Broncos, who the Ravens soundly beat. Took him until overtime. But afterwards, Dan Orlovsky writes, Joey, how come he has R at the end? Burr? Is that it?
He's saying Burr, like this dude's cold.
Oh, okay, Joey Burr. Okay, I got you. But it also is goes along with Burrow a little bit.
Yeah.
So he says, y'all were right. MVP isn't over. And then in parentheses, that's on me. Yes, it is on you.
And Sarah,
meanwhile,
can I add in real quick
sure.
on that game itself? Sorry to cut you off your momentum here.
No, you're good.
Sean Payton didn't go for 2 with 12 seconds left on the clock after his team went down and had a chance to win the game. He chooses to kick the extra point, and you put yourselves in a position with a rookie quarterback on the road in Cincinnati against a desperate team, right? Denver's in the postseason as of right now. They need a little bit of help, and they need to win, obviously, coming up in the regular season finale. But Sean Payton electing not to go for 2 and the jugular in the ending seconds of regulation and leave it up to overtime, leave it up to a potential coin flip, and so on and so forth. To me, that was a head scratcher for me.
It boggles my mind when you have somebody who can move the ball, like the Bengals. I mean, it's similar. Like I wouldn't put the ball back in Joe Burrow's hands. I wouldn't put the ball back in Lamar Jackson's hands. I wouldn't put the ball back in Josh Allen's. I mean, anybody, Mahomes, anybody. I don't know. Yeah, I know he said something about tying would have been beneficial for them too. But you still got to stop him in overtime, and you didn't. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think that was a bad decision. Meanwhile, as you probably saw, the Bills did beat the Jets 40-14, and it was a historic day for Josh Allen in terms of his career, because he put up he got his 40th touchdown in that game, which marks his fourth season where he's put up 40 or more touchdowns in each season. That's phenomenal.
Five straight, it says.
Oh, it's 5 straight. There it is, 5 straight. You're right, because it has the 4 below and then the 40 in 2024. So that's phenomenal. Obviously, that streak doesn't mean anything in terms of 2024 any more than Lamar beating Vic's rushing record means much for 2024, because those are career numbers, right? So anyway, but that's the background to what we're going to get to with this clip from Dan on Get Up, because last week he said the only person that could really change his mind from Josh Allen was Joe Burrow. And then Joe Burrow went off. And so he was asked about, do you now feel like it's Joe Burrow? He ends up morphing it more into a conversation about Lamar again. So I'm going to pause it a few times as we go, Bobby, if you don't mind, to kind of pick it apart. All right, here we go.
Bengals get into the playoffs. Should Joe Burrow be the MVP? Gosh. He's had the best season. He is by
so this is the conversation, Greeny. I would still probably vote for Josh Allen. So I was the big dummy that said a couple weeks ago, the MVP vote is over. I was a little bit caught in the moment, okay? So no, it's not over.
Okay, so we're starting the segment off well, right, Bobby? We're doing pretty good. It's not over. I was the big dummy who said it was over. So thank you for fessing up to that. Appreciate it. But now then it goes downhill from there, because in my view, again, I say this as in a debate kind of format. I like Dan Orlovsky. I think he's an excellent analyst, and I have nothing against him personally. So all the words I'm about to say is to refute some arguments, and I think he makes some dumb arguments against Lamar. So let's keep going.
I still think I would give it to Josh Allen. The problem with the whole MVP conversation and narrative has been we have changed the definition. I said this weeks ago on First Take, okay? Offensive Player of the Year goes to the person who has the best season. That would be in the conversation, in my opinion, the Lamar Jacksons. Lamar's season has been absolutely off the charts. Saquon Barkley, absolutely off the charts. Most valuable is the definition. Who's bringing more of it? Are you a benefactor or are you a contributor?
I hope he's really about to make an argument that Lamar is a benefactor and not a contributor. So just want to pause that. And then he also said, he just said right there, if you're asking who the best season is, it's Lamar Jackson. Okay. So now he's got to come up with some reasons after you just declared that Lamar's the best quarterback, that he's having the best season. Now he's going to try to figure out how to still take it away from Lamar and give it to Josh. And he starts with benefactors versus contributors, like palm to forehead. Honestly, you know, okay, benefactor, contributor. Lamar's more of a benefactor than a contributor. Come on, Dan, here we go.
I think the guys that make the greatest case to being the contributors, Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, if he drags this team into the playoffs. I would still say Josh Allen. If we're having a conversation about MVP and quarterbacks, those quarterbacks in it, right? Lamar Jackson, unbelievable season. Guys get open more than Josh Allen and Joe Burrow's. That's the truth, okay? Joe Burrow's guys get open. Jamar and T are open the least amount, I think.
I'm sorry, I have to pause it again. Back up. He's now going to use a separation argument. He's about to use a separation argument to argue that it's harder for Joe with T. Higgins and Chase. Are we being real here? Dan Orlovsky, let's back up. A separation argument to make it seem like T and Chase are below the Ravens wide receivers. And I love the Ravens wide receivers. We are not going to trash them. But come on. I want to hear Dan say, if the draft started tomorrow and you got to take a duo, which duo are you going to take? Are you taking Zay and Bateman because of separation? Or are you going to take T and Chase? I cannot believe he's about to make this argument. Here we go.
Allen and Joe Burrow's. That's the truth. Okay? Joe Burrow's guys get open. Jamar and T are open the least amount, I think. So Joe Burrow, look at this, okay? Lamar's average separation. That's the best in the NFL. I want everyone to understand that. 4.31, that is the most separation in the NFL. Josh Allen at 3.6 and 3.22, that's average yards. Both of those guys are bottom 10. So they're throwing, and look it to the right. Josh, 81 attempts thrown to guys that are covered. Joe Burrow, 96. So they're throwing more passes to guys that are covered and completing more passes to guys that are covered. So are you doing more with less? That's got to be a part of that conversation.
Bobby, that's a new argument. Are you like Lamar has less than Burrow or Josh Allen because of separation? What's your reaction to that? Because we know what mine is.
I'd like to take this time to congratulate Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
Because they are now seen as elite of elites when it comes to their position, league-wide. Right?
I cannot.
When you look at the Jamar's and Jamar's having a historic season in Cincinnati alongside his quarterback, and yet they are in danger of missing the postseason. Now, there's a lot of scenarios that have gone right for them over the last week or two, and their percentage continues to go up and up in terms of whether or not they're going to make it. But they are struggling. They have had to be desperate. Desperate times have called for desperate measures for weeks now for Cincinnati. But as far as I'm concerned, Dan's argument absolutely is putting Zay and Rashad in a category that we have never, ever remotely had them in. And apparently they are among the league's best when it comes to wide receiver duos.
He's literally with a straight face, and then he asked the producers to put a graphic with it. Like, that's how serious he is to try to argue. Now, listen again. Zay and Bate are having seasons. Probably Zay very well may go down as the first Ravens drafted wide receiver that goes to the Pro Bowl as a wide receiver. Bateman, for sure, is looking like a genius signing by Eric DaCosta. But listen, come on, guys. Come on. I mean, Zay would never do it, but I think deep down they'd be like, okay, Chase is him. Chase, you know what I mean? Every wide receiver is going to say, okay, I'm number one in the league. But in the back of their minds, it's like, Chase. You know what I mean? Like what are we doing here? I will also say this in terms of separation. these separation stats, it's hard to measure exactly, but for sure quarterbacks have an impact on the separation. Okay? Lamar Jackson is extending plays. Lamar Jackson has, just like he does with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson has the defense glued on him. Okay? So I cannot tell you how much Lamar is helping with those separation statistics, but I can tell you he does help with those separation statistics.
Oh.
Let me tell you what you cannot say. This one is totally wide receivers. How about, I'm going to come back to that slide. How about for Josh Allen? I don't even think I need to show screen grabs of what Josh and T did, because we all have seen it with our own eyes of what they've done mossing people. Okay, but how about this for Josh Allen? This isn't Josh Allen. Look at Keon Coleman plucking an interception from the guy in front of him. Look at Amari Cooper going into concussion protocol to make this catch, lands on his back and head, hits his head hard. Bobby, these two catches yesterday were sensational. Can we stop acting like Josh is playing with a bunch of trash around him? That's not happening. So you can talk about separation. Lamar has an impact on this. But this is Josh throwing up plays because his receivers, he knows his receivers will make plays for him.
Right.
Look at those catches from yesterday.
And you know what you got to keep in mind too, and when you look at those averages and that graphic that he put up, right, in terms of average separation, you have to keep in mind that of course Josh's will be lower than Lamar's in terms of average separation because he throws it more than Lamar does.
Correct.
Right? So not only are we talking about the playmaking ability here, but we also got to think about volume when it comes to Josh as a passer versus Lamar as a passer. Lamar is not asked to do as much passing in this well-balanced number one offense in the league because of everything he has around him.
Well, and then let's just go a little bit further, because that's just the wide receiver part. So people will try to use Derrick Henry against Lamar, right? Now, listen, I don't think that James Cook is Derrick Henry. But again, acting like this is the tiebreaker, there were two different statistics that the CBS crew put up last night that highlights how well James Cook is playing. Okay, again, this is not Josh playing with trash. Okay, in the 4 December games this season, James Cook has 3 100-plus yard rushing games. That's tied for first in the NFL in this crunch time of December. Yards per rush in December, James Cook is 7.4 yards per rush. That is first in the NFL. What are we doing here? How about this one? As they're making a field goal, they flash this. James Cook, he had just scored his 15th rushing touchdown this season. That's the most in the NFL. And that's when saying Josh has 6 from 1 yard out. That they could have given it to James.
Well, let me add in this too, because he's a pass catcher for them as well. He could do a little bit of both. And I have the numbers up in front of me. 32 receptions for 258 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns on top of what he's done on the ground this year for Josh.
There you go. So let's add that in. And then one last thing I want to say about Dan in there is he said, well, last year we've changed the definition of valuable. They have not done. I learned this by watching Chris Broussard, who's not an MVP voter for the NFL, but he is for NBA. He's like, I don't understand you guys in the NFL. You guys have changed the definition. To us, we don't take the word valuable so literally. Like to us, it's like the most valuable. Like you're the best. You know what I mean? You're the best. And so I agree it's changed a little bit because it's really emphasized on value. But Dan Orlovsky in there kept saying, well, last year, if it were about stats, Josh would have won it. How many times do we have to refute this? Like, I don't know if he's listening. Look at the stats. Everything in green. This is last year. This is not this year. Yeah. Last year, everything in green is what Lamar won, and everything in green on Josh Allen's side is what he won. What are we doing here? Like, it was back and forth. Lamar had won in several categories, including completion percentage and the few interceptions by far. Josh had those 18 that we all know. Lamar had a better quarterback rating. Obviously, had the better rushing yards. So, like, why do we keep saying if it were stats, Josh would have won it? No, it would have been Dak, but we already explained how Dak melted down. You need to have a compelling reason why the stats aren't the number one thing. And I'm not seeing a compelling reason. voter fatigue / pity is not a compelling reason. Okay.
Well, let's be clear too that anybody that has, okay, one, it's double-digit interceptions. Two, this is close to 20 interceptions in a 17-game, 18-week season. There's a reason why Josh was not anywhere near a front runner. What did he finish? 5th last year?
He was 5th in voting.
5th in voting.
Yes.
It's because of what you have circled on the screen right there.
Yes.
You can't give the ball away that much. That's been the problem. That's been the knock for Josh, right? For Lamar, it's been his postseason inconsistencies.
Which
for
has
Josh,
nothing to do with the MVP.
It's been recklessness.
Right. Totally agree. So miss me with all of this. They're doing more with less. This whole thing, like Zay and Bateman have a better separation statistic, so therefore the tie goes to Josh. No, miss me with that. That Derrick Henry, who's having career years in rushing per attempt and rushing success, and I want to point this out. I pointed it out specifically in terms of Gus Edwards, but Ken McCusick, and we got to blow this up here, Bobby, because I know it's small, but Ken McCusick pointed out Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Devontae Freeman, Mark Ingram, Latavius Robinson, and Derrick Henry all have about the same rush success rate with Lamar. It's in that 57 to 59% rush rate. And all of them were lower both before and after playing with Lamar. All of them. You're talking about older guys, young guys, guys in their prime like Gus Edwards.
Different styles.
It doesn't matter. They all have a very similar rush success rate with Lamar. Ken went so deep into the numbers. He said there have been 51 running backs since 1995. You have to have 80 plus carries going back to 1995. Okay, that's easy. 80 carries. That makes you a more legitimate running back if you've had that many carries. There's been 51 with a 56.5% success rate or higher. Okay, 56.5 is very high. There's only been 51 since 1995 who have done it. Bobby, almost a fifth of them have been running backs for the Ravens, but running backs for the Ravens between 2018 and 2024. Oh, so during the Lamar Jackson era. 1/5. Miss me with the only Henry's helping Lamar and Lamar's not helping Henry. It's just not happening. So this whole thing, he might want to keep saying he's doing more with less. And something tells me he didn't bring up Derrick Henry because that's been refuted. Maybe he's seen that. So then he went to the even weaker argument with the wide receiver separation. It was just terrible analysis in my view. And again, I love Dan Orlovsky.
What about strength of schedule? Because obviously that comes into play here when you look at win-loss record, and that is, of course, won by, I guess, in favor of Josh as of right now with 2 more wins in the left-hand side of the column than Lamar. What do you have circled here?
Yeah, so this was before Sunday's games. I think this was Saturday. But yeah, so if you look at the strength of schedule, which is the SOS column in yellow, and then there's strength of victory, which is SOV in the green column. So strength of schedule, the Ravens are at 0.545. That is by far the most difficult schedule of anybody on here. And this highlights the 10 best records in the AFC, including all the playoff teams. It is way more than KC, which is at 0.477. It's more than Buffalo, which is 0.493. And then there's Lamar at 0.545. So everybody keeps saying, well, Josh beat, the Chiefs, which is a big deal. And I think that should go on his resume. And he beat the Lions. That one, to me, their defense was a mash unit. Like, to me, I don't know why that's lifted up so much, given where the Lions were at the time that they played them. Okay, but you give him that. Still, by far, Lamar has gone through the harder gauntlet of games. It doesn't matter who the Ravens play in the playoffs because they will have already played them. That's how hard their schedule has been. They've played all the playoff teams. All
Sarah,
of them.
Look at that. Look at this. This is staggering. The next closest strength of schedule are the Chargers. and they're 9-6. Yes, they're in the postseason. They have a .511 winning percentage. That's the next closest.
Yeah.
So to your point a second ago.
And look at Cincinnati, by the way, who Orlovsky's ready to crown for Burrow. They're at the bottom. They have the worst record, and they have the easiest strength of schedule.
Yeah, among everyone on this list.
Except for Miami. They're the second easiest.
Well,
now, sorry, go ahead.
Strength of schedule. Okay, yeah, yes. They have the least strength of victory.
Correct. Which is because the Broncos were the first time they beat a team with a winning record, and it took them till overtime to do it. So strength of victory, if any of you are wondering, is the teams that you beat, how good were their records?
Yeah.
Again, Ravens are demolishing everybody else at .539. Nobody else even hits the .5s.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
So this whole thing where Josh Allen, yes, he has 2 more wins, but again, I go back to the where the defense was, and that Lamar was number 1 in the quarterback betrayal index because he had to overcome those early issues with the defense and Justin Tucker. And then he still has the harder schedule, and he has a better strength of victory.
And to put a closing argument on this discussion, right? The bow, what have the core 4 done against one another? The core 4 in the AFC, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen. This graphic courtesy of First Things First and FS1. Mahomes and Lamar, the only 2 of the 4 that have had winning records against one another. Mahomes is 2-1 against those guys that I just listed. Lamar is 3-1. Burrow, notably, 0-3. Josh, 1-1 thus far.